dated Monday, August 7th, 2023. I've got 602. Franco.
Trustee Mahoney.
Here.
Trustee Kunze.
Present.
Trustee Britton.
Here.
Trustee Saviano.
Here.
Trustee Triber is absent. And Trustee Sauter.
Here.
President Lineham.
Here. And if you'll rise with me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. All right, that's going to take us to public comments. So we've got looks like a full house. We have 4 individuals.
First one is Bill Zelsdorf.
Bill.
Hello.
Hey, Bill.
Hi, Bill.
I think everyone here knows me, and I know all of you. And I'd like to think that I have a friendship with the village and all the trustees. But of course, in this case, we're not just dealing with friendship. It's more loyalty and honesty and professionalism, and I think we all share that. My speech is very brief. I don't have that much to say. I want you to know that I've been with East Dundee almost 30 years in what I've been doing with the visitor center and the depot. And I'm sort of the face of the depot to many people, such as it is. And I like to think that my job is not finished here, that I still have more to do and offer. And I know I have the support of many in the community. And now I'm just seeking yours. That's basically all I have to say. So thank you for this opportunity and whatever your decision is. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay.
The next one is Phil Oleo.
Well, I'm going to be a little longer here, but hopefully you won't mind, okay? I think many of you know who I am, but just in case you don't know, my name is Phil Aleo. I've been a resident here of Dundee Township my entire life, since 1958. So I'm deeply involved and intimately involved in the history of Dundee and the affairs of Dundee. I'm an author, I'm a historian. I've actually written 22 books now that are written and published, and many of them about this area. I give walking tours for Dundee. I'm known for that. Historical presentations, I've been doing that for over 20 years here in Dundee, so I have an intimate relationship with this town and a love for this town that probably is pretty well up there, as you can imagine, okay? So that's the reason why I'm here tonight. I'm very concerned about the use of the Dundee Township Depot in the future of the visitor center. My concerns center around the Herrick proposal, which I have read. Their mission mirrors what is already in place. The mission of the organization, I'm reading this to you, the mission of the organization will be to operate the depot as a visitor center, resume the depot market, which in fact is still taking place, and offer additional amenities and support to the village of East Dundee and its residents. Under the subheading background, it states, the depot has served as the heart of the community by operating a visitor center, excuse me, a place to seek warmth during cold weather events, and a stopover for trail users. The previous organization that operated out of the depot created a legacy worth continuing. Amen to that. She is correct. It certainly has done that. They have created a legacy worth continuing, and it is continuing right now. It has not stopped. with the current program that is in place. But then, the Herrick proposal states, over the years, they faced various struggles that they were inevitably not able to overcome. This makes no sense. This, in fact, is completely baseless. In truth, the Dundee Visitor Center organization has run efficiently, productively, and seamlessly for decades. Not only did they operate the Visitor Center in the market for decades, but every dollar that came into the Visitor Center went back into the community. Did you know that? I bet some of you didn't know that. It's true. Here's some examples, which you probably don't know about. Every year, they assisted a local college student with grant money to aid in deferring that student's costs. This was accomplished with the local Rotary Club, and we're amounting to $1,500 to $2,000 every year went for that purpose. Isn't that a grand way to help out our community? How about this? When the historic landmark, the Raceway Woods silo, was being restored, it was the Visitor Center that stepped up and provided the final monies required to complete the project. That's very important. Number 3, as an example, when our local historical society was down and out, needing a new heating system, it was the Visitor Center that stepped up and generously provided the funds that were needed to get that accomplished. So these are awesome things that the Visitor Center has been doing, ongoing. So when the previous organization dissolved a few months ago, their funds were equally divided among the Dundee Township Lions, the Boys and the Girls Club, and the Dundee Foundation. Again, admirable. But now today, although the original organization that was established decades ago is no longer in place, the town of East Dundee has graciously maintained the services and the benefits of the Visitor Center with a nominal cost. Plus, every dollar that is coming in through the Saturday market is going to the Dundee Township Historical Society. Did you know that? It's a great thing they're doing. It really is. And this is the most generous, worthy, and beneficial donation being made on a monthly basis. We're talking thousands of dollars in a year's time. The Herrick proposal will end all such donations. Instead, the money coming into the Visitor Center will be used to finance the salary of Rachel Herrick. She is the #1 term or employee under the term in her proposal on page 5 under the subheading Staffing the Visitor Center. She is the paid staff. And this is where the weakest link in her proposal lies. The proposal lists the following sources of revenue. Donations. Good luck with that. Residents pay taxes. They're not going to want to pay taxes or pay money in for a visitor center. It's not reasonable. Grants. You can't apply for a grant without village involvement. It's not going to be feasible as well. Business partnerships. Local businesses may pay a nominal fee to be business partners and participate in a business directory. Why would you be wanting to do that? Isn't that already been accomplished through, not the Rotary Club, the Chamber of Commerce? There you go. That's who that does that right now. So that's not going to happen. Besides, and also she just mentioned there that she'll be involved with events or activities hosted by the organization. Well, you know what? East Dundee has a great community events coordinator, Catherine Deal, who, by the way, occupies the back room, which Mrs. Herrick wants to utilize as her main office. Not only is Catherine currently using this room for all ongoing functions of events that she organizes and is in charge of, she has made it perfectly clear to Erica that she will continue to require this room. Are you aware of that? That's a fact. So what that means is that Rachel Herrick will be required to set up office in the lobby with her children, whom she homeschools. That's not going to work. I'm sorry. So the last point that we need to address is this, and this is really the key point. What is the purpose of the revenue that the Herricks hope to generate? What will the revenue be used for? Well, first of all, of course, salaries and expenses. Not for the community, as every dollar that has been and also is to this day being used for the community. So yes, it's highly unlikely that the Dundee Township Visitor Center will ever be able to raise enough money to carry the expenses of rent, plus the salaries of Rachel Herrick and anyone else that she may attempt to hire. The Herrick proposal offers nothing new except two elements: complications and expense. That's all that it adds to what we have right now. So as I see it, looking beyond the present, the long-term reality of the Herrick proposal is failure. Within 8 to 12 months, the Herrick proposal will fail due to a lack of funds. The beloved Dundee Depot that has continuously served the community in so many ways will sit empty and useless. That is not what we want. Thank you.
Thanks, Phil. Thanks. Franco, the person? Michael Dewey. Thanks.
So the two people before me introduced themselves that they knew everybody, and everybody knew them. Nobody knows me.
It's not true. It's not true.
Looking forward to meeting you.
I'll vouch for Michael.
Thank you. Can you hear me with this? Yeah. Okay. All right, so I am here to speak about the prohibited parking of RVs and boats on personal property. And I don't know the full language of the ordinances, but it looks like it's under B, number 2, where no portion shall park in a driveway, et cetera, et cetera. Are you all familiar with that?
Mhm.
Okay. So, by the way, thank you for allowing me to speak, Mr. President and Board of Trustees. I'm a resident of West Dundee. And although I'm a resident of West Dundee, I'm here to speak on behalf of the boat owners and the RV owners in East Dundee, because I own a boat and an RV myself. And I understand the impact that this ordinance will have on your citizens. Forcing owners to rent a storage place has a much larger impact than you might realize. I would like to point out a few things to consider before you decide. First thing that you ask yourself whenever you buy an RV or a boat is, can you afford it? And the second thing that you ask is, where are you going to keep it? Keeping the RVs and the boats on your property is very important for many reasons. It starts with the cost of renting the storage place is expensive. There are security reasons. Rodent control is much easier on your own property. Having the RV and the boat available for maintenance at home is extremely important. And the drive back and forth for pickup and delivery from storage makes it very difficult to go boating or camping at the spur of the moment as weather permits. It's quite a burden. It's very inconvenient and it's expensive. So just like the citizens in your town, my wife Sonia and I knew that we could not afford a boat or an RV if we could not keep them at home. And keeping them on our property was the deal breaker. If we could not do that, we would not make the investment. We researched the ordinance very carefully before we made a purchase. And fortunately, we met the guidelines and we can keep them in our driveway in West Dundee. Boating and camping has become our main source of entertainment. We all understand that sometimes parking RVs and boats in personal property driveways can be unattractive to the neighbors in the community. And I understand why laws need to be set to have some regulations. But to prohibit year-round parking on personal property altogether is unreasonable, and it puts a burden on your residents. Plus, it takes away their rights. However, writing an ordinance that allows parking on private property under certain conditions is much more reasonable. So I'm here tonight to urge this board not to pass this amendment and to look a little deeper into the possibilities to reach your goals while still allowing the owners to keep their RVs and their boats at home. Perhaps restricting the area of parking is a solution. Somewhere to shelter the view from the street level would make sense. Somewhere to shelter the view from the neighbor's kitchen window would make sense. But somewhere on the property other than the garage should be allowed. There are many options to consider that would allow your citizens to appreciate the sport of bowling and ever-popular camping experiences while keeping the village neat and tidy. So I urge you to vote no to this, go back to the drawing board, and see if you can come up with some perimeters that would allow people to keep their vehicles on their property. Keep in mind, I'm not talking about commercial or derelict vehicles. That would be separate, and they should be separated from all the different regulations. I have time left. Ask me questions.
It's not the fault.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike.
All right, thank you for the time.
Henry Fixemer.
Hello, my name is Henry Fixmer, and my family and I moved to East Dundee last December. I've learned a lot about our village, and as a parent and resident, I have a vested interest in seeing it grow through ongoing revitalization. I really love this place, too. To that end, I've been thinking of some ideas for some of the properties that have been in question, such as the one at the northeast corner of Van Buren and 72. I would like to suggest considering a playground with a unique art opportunity. To block the heavy traffic noise, a solid wall could take up 3 sides, east, south, and west, and have the metal fencing on the north side where there would be entry. On the inside of the wall, there could be fun elements embedded, such as bells and other interactive items and toys. The walls themselves could have fun scenes painted to encourage imaginative play. For example, the bells could be part of a music studio, or there could be a space scene or a farm scene. And that would be directly on the wall and have some toys or ride-ons with it. The solid walls would have another high point, and that East Dundee could partner with D300 and have a competition to select a student or group of students to create a mural on the outside. There could perhaps even be 3 murals, one for each wall. One created by a student, one by a resident, and maybe one even sponsored by East Dundee businesses. And this could be an attractive thing for people to see when they're coming up the hill or entering the village from the east. And I know that's a lot for a small property, but consider that it would attract not only locals, but people from neighboring communities, people who can easily walk from or to downtown or next door to Faros. Not only would this be a compliment to Lions Park, but it would be an attraction for the entire village. And it'd also be a great place for kids to decompress after Santa's Village. My second suggestion is for the village's eventual use, hopefully, of the Hager property. And I'll admit I don't know everything about it yet, but I've been trying to learn about it. And although it's a shame that the building is going to have to probably come down, I think it would be cool to honor its history by using elements of the materials in the construction of whatever follows. As to that, now I'm imagining, and please bear with me here for a moment, a skate park. Now picture it built for skating, skateboarding, and BMX trick riding. It could bring in enthusiasts and, if done well, even top athletes. Since many people do not want skate parks due to the perception of teen delinquents hanging out, I looked up the potential benefits to the communities. The short version, and there was a long list of benefits, but for time's sake, it would give kids a place to hang out that is meant for them, it's created for them, and it also promotes getting exercise, getting outside off the screens. It would be next to the Fox River Valley Trail, and if you had another sit-down picnic area for people to take a break from their rides, get their ice cream from Dairy Queen and go over and eat it. Also, large, well-kept skate parks, medium to large, can host competitions and festivals that would bring in vendors, food trucks, and athletes and their families. This would bring in money from tourists as well as the opportunity to attract park sponsors, because these events do attract sponsorships, and that is a great way for upkeep. Of course, more tourist activity means more income for East Dundee. Another aspect to consider is that, as far as I know, skate park would be a lower risk of taking damage in the event of flooding other than other options that might appear. This could be named the Hager Skate and BMX Park, or something similar in that vein to honor the Hager family. The rest of the property could be dedicated to parking that, although a few blocks away from downtown, can help accommodate the overflow for the bigger events. And if the aforementioned playground was attractive but too large for the other property, I believe there would be enough room to have both there at the Hager area. And finally, just one other idea that I was working on is I've been inspired by the murals and the other art, and especially that gorgeous new one and the dragonfly. I love that. It reminded me of towns and cities that have themes. Where I grew up, there were quilt patterns painted on barns and other buildings, and I saw at least one business use flower colors to create a quilt pattern. Tourists love finding these touches. They'll get maps and guides and everything. And it's like a treasure hunt, and they leave dollars in their wake. I think it would be worth looking at an art theme to incorporate around the village, especially at the riverfront. The art itself could have a theme, maybe even something to do to coordinate with the library's fox carving. Honestly, I would personally love to see more sculptures like that dragonfly. I understand that there will be a presentation soon that will offer ideas based on the survey. I have not seen that. I don't know what's in that. But I hope that the ideas I presented simply as a resident will also be considered. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's all. That's it. Okay. Dolores, would you like to, Dolores, yours?
I forgot to sign in, I'm sorry.
Not a problem.
In fact, I didn't sign in, so. I would like to tell you a little bit about the history of the depot. You know, you almost didn't have this bike path here. It was supposed to go over in West Dundee. East Dundee didn't want it. They said it's going to litter, there's going to be crime on the path, and we don't want it here. And my husband was, I want it. And I said, I want it. And so they said, well, maybe we could work something out. Yeah, President, we need a place to have potty stop. So, okay, and we got together, but you have to go through a nonprofit organization. So we went through the Dundee Township. Now, we wanted the bike path. East Dundee was supposed to have the bike path. But the township thought that there was a sesquicentennial, big word. And so they thought it was a sesquicentennial celebration. We thought it was for the depot, the bike path. We worked real hard, but because we went through the township as a non-profit organization, they could do whatever they wanted to. We raised money, we had bake sales, we had cakewalks, we had all kinds of things. The first $600 that we raised went to buy flags, a flag contest. They had a contest who could make a flag for the sesquicentennial. Of course, it was a sesquicentennial and a bike path and a depot all together. And because it was a nonprofit organization, they could do what they wanted to, especially if you weren't attending the meetings that they called. We were so upset, it took us a long time to get the money together. In fact, we had to come to East Dundee several times for the money. But East Dundee, they were always against us. They told us that we had to take out the cement because we did it too late in the year. It was in November. I stood with a flashlight while they poured the cement. And he and my husband knew a little bit about engineering, and he had the railroad company come out and they said, that is okay. It's okay, the cement is okay. And one spread said it was so mad that when they used all the black dirt, they took all that black dirt away. East Dundee took it away and put it someplace else. We were going to put that back on the ground. Lights went in. The Dundee Township Historical Society, and I love them, and I wanted the lumberyard to be a historical place, and Fred did too, but we didn't get it done. He died too soon. But anyway, that's one reason that I don't like nonprofit organizations. And another reason I went to this, I shouldn't say it because I've changed my mind, but Wounded Heroes, when Sinette had a big program of Wounded Heroes at Arlington Heights, and he said, I put up 5,000 flags. He wasn't out there to put up 5,000 flags, and when he said, I did more shows than Bob Hope did, that settled that I don't go to I don't donate to them. You're not supposed to, well, what nonprofit organizations do, they work for themselves. If they decide to do something, if they decide to sponsor flags someplace, they can sponsor flags someplace. And if they decide to give some money to another organization, and this is what happens. A nonprofit organization, and Trish knows that, will give to another nonprofit organization, which gives to the VFW. If I want to give to the VFW, why not give it right to the VFW instead of going to 3 or 4 nonprofit organizations? This happened in the school district 300. I was teaching there, and when I retired, they were going to tear down Parkview preschool because they needed to put the lights 3 inches higher, the switches 3 inches higher, and the doorknobs 2 inches lower. And it seemed that I can give you the name of the superintendent at that time, but I won't. But I'll just say that the superintendent was also on the board of Tom Thumb. He sold it, he didn't. The board that they have for the nonprofit organization sold District 300's preschool property to Tom Thumb for $1. I was shocked. This happens when you have nonprofit organizations. East Dundee should keep the depot and keep it as their own. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? All righty, thank you all. That'll take us to our consent agenda. Can I get a motion for that?
I will move to approve the regular village board meeting minutes dated July 17th, 2023. I will also move to accept the warrants list in the amount of $837,190.57. I'll also move to approve an ordinance amending section 72.01 of the Village of East Dundee Village Code regarding parking regulations. I will also move to approve a resolution authorizing the village administrator to enter into an agreement with Advanced Automation and Controls, Inc. to perform SC-ADA upgrades to the wastewater treatment plant in the amount not to exceed $38,380. I'll also move to approve an ordinance establishing the administrative procedure for the Village of East Dundee to determine eligibility under the Public Safety Employee Benefits Act, and I will move to give advice and consent to appointments to the Police Commission and the Arts Council.
Second. Okay. Trustee Mahoney,
Yes.
Coonsey,
Yes.
Britton,
Yes.
Saviano,
Yes.
and Sauter.
Yes.
Just so everybody knows, that parking ordinance that was listed in that was not the one that has to do with the trucks and RVs.
Yes. Has to do with the
That's
village
later.
hall.
That's a separate deal.
But that's going to take us to the meat of the agenda. The other agenda items, we'll start with A, if I could have a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve a special event permit and depot rental application and approval of Class F special events liquor license and a waiver of all village associated fees for the first annual East Dundee Wine Walk.
Second.
Okay. Kate, were you interested in addressing the board? This is kind of your baby.
It is my baby.
All right. Why don't you tell us what
Do you
we're...
need me to address
Do we
it?
have
If
any,
you'd like.
do we have any questions?
Yeah, you don't have to if you don't like the...
I don't know.
I really quickly,
Yeah.
just very quickly. So my understanding of this is that it will be a wine walk, multiple people pouring, Bassett certification for everybody pouring.
Yep, everybody will have a Bassett certified person, whether it be an employee of the business or somebody appointed by me. That's
Awesome.
necessary.
That's all I need to know.
Remind me to text you later to see if you can do.
I'm hiding. But
Bassett certified?
yes.
Last we spoke, we were up to 80. How many?
109 as of this morning.
Great.
Yep, and we're
Excellent.
maxed out at 150.
Okay.
Tickets?
So, yep.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Awesome. And can you share some of the different locations around the village?
Yeah, so as of right now.
I'm giving you the opportunity to promote this. Not that you need to.
I was gonna say, I feel like, we held out on like really throwing it out there, and it's kind of just taken a life of its own. So I think that's a good sign. So we have, as of right now, Aliano's. I'm not sure the cafe or the restaurant which one is going to be participating. Obviously, Eastside, Century 21, Willow and Birch, sort of covers my block. Black and Gray, DC Cobbs. I have 4 businesses, I believe, that want to participate that are outside of the square. One is Hespring Insurance, State Farm. And we have Shanna McKee, who is a small business owner in town. She works out of her house. She is participating. I can't really think of the other one.
And those folks will be on the depot grounds?
Yes, and they will be on the depot. Yeah,
Perfect.
completely enclosed.
As opposed to you have to drive.
No, yes, I was going to walk up the hill.
Yes,
and across.
exactly.
The goal was to make sure that everybody was inside the square, not gallivanting across like 72 or anywhere outside of like kind of a closed area. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome. Everybody good?
Yeah, I think so.
Great.
I have some information to give you later.
Oh, okay. Perfect. Thanks, Kathleen.
Great.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Kate.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Trustee Mahoney,
Yes.
Trustee Coonsey,
Yes.
Britton,
Yes.
Saviano,
Yes.
and Sauter.
Yes.
Okay. That'll take us to item B, if we could have this is direction basically in response to the proposals submitted to the village from the request for proposals process to operate the depot and the depot park.
So I want to kind of make some response because we've had quite a few people who have comments about just the concept of a nonprofit running the depot. And my whole thing is a nonprofit was running the depot until March of this year. That's where the, Saturday markets came from. That's who had Bill, right? Who was paying Bill's salary, except the last 2 years where the village paid it because the nonprofit wasn't making enough money to pay a salary. So
Disbanded.
and it has been disbanded. It disbanded in March. So the issue of should it be a village, Should it be the village? Should it be a new nonprofit coming in? Should it be a different sort of organization? Is something we've only been dealing with this year, since March. And it's a question of whether or not the village does it or a new nonprofit comes in to do it. That's really what we wanted it to come down to. That's why that's why this board chose to issue the RFP and try to get responses, try to get ideas from people, try to get anybody to come in and provide information. The issue with the village running it is that we have many more liabilities as a government entity that we would have to be very, very aware of and very, very careful of. Staffing, it could be Bill, but Bill subcontracts, right? And that subcontracting may have to stop because the village would be responsible for all of the employees. So there is a different level of responsibility that the village has to maintain if we take it over. That's really all I wanted to say, just that it has been a nonprofit. They have disbanded. They disbanded and honestly for the last couple of years had not been paying salary, had not been paying staff. We have. And so the idea of maintaining status quo, there's no status quo right now, right? We agreed to help support one last summer because this happened in March and it would have been a shock to everybody's systems if we didn't have the depot market this summer. But to make that an ongoing thing would be onerous for the village. To make it a responsibility of staff to run the Saturday markets, to make it the responsibility of staff to staff the depot. All of those things, that's money, that's time, and I think we need to consider not just this nonprofit, but it sounds like the question is any nonprofit, right? Any nonprofit versus the village, which makes the most sense. Time, money, all of those things. I just really want to be clear that it, until March of this year, has been a nonprofit. It was not the village. So that's all I kind of want to say.
And in addition to that, there were some statements made that scholarships were made to different students. That hasn't happened for the last 3 years because they didn't have the money to be able to invest into scholarships. So I think we need to be very clear and very honest about where we are right now. I don't know, Franco, I know you've been intimately involved with this. Would you like to give any background on the situation? Sorry,
really,
put you on the spot.
Well, really, we're just looking for direction. And on there are some items that staff listed in its memo that if the board is okay with proceeding with that, staff can negotiate something with the proposer if the village board wants to go that way, and then come back and show it to the board for you guys to take a look at, something with actual numbers and language. But we need the board's direction on how to move forward with it. It's up to you guys.
Okay.
I also want to say too, yes, I do have a nonprofit, Dolores knows that, for veterans, but I just want to be aware of generalizations and blanket statements that all nonprofits give to nonprofits who give to nonprofits, because that's not necessarily how it is. We give direct money to veterans in need, hand them checks too. So I just want to be careful about generalizing nonprofits.
Amy, did you, hang on a second. Did you want to?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the proposal was looking for a way to get the village out of running this and staffing it, and we do want a nonprofit or some entity to take it over. The appealing thing about Rachel Herrick's proposal is that she is not changing what was successful there. Like, she's offering giving a nonprofit entity or something that we can push the responsibility to a third party like we've asked for, and not change it to something totally different, but working in, building on the things that everyone loves. It sounds like her family fell in love with that depot and wants to continue that. So it does seem like that is the most in line with what we're asking for, is finding a third party who's going to continue on what everyone loves about it. but take us out of the liability and staffing and funding of it.
Scott,
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would echo a lot of the other comments. I would also just like to say a personal anecdotal story about Miss Herrick. She also volunteers for the Friends of the Fox, and they had a screening of a movie that was made about the Friends of the Fox. And Rachel was the driving force behind putting that event on, to the tune of driving out of town to pick up a screen, I understand, making cookies, I believe, wooden name plaques that were carved out of wood. I think that this is a person that is driven to create good things, and they've expressed a desire to maintain community. So, and including working with Mr. Zalsdorf, and I hope that you'll take them up on it. I mean, if you're serious about wanting to continue in this, the opportunity is there.
Rachel, the other two proposers have had the opportunity to speak. Would you like to address the board and respond to any of the comments that were previously made?
Hello, I am Rachel Herrick. My husband is providing the childcare this evening. Firstly, to go off of some of the other comments made, my homeschool kids are now enrolled at Parkview Elementary. They'll be starting a week from tomorrow. Very excited. Great school, just right in eyeshot of our home. And like Sarah said, the village put this RFP out, and as a resident, as a community member, we decided to seek input from the community. We talked to dozens of people, including Phil, including Bill, including Dolores, and so many others that I learned even more of the rich history about it, and it just fit with our skills and our hopes for the community. About the piece that Phil said, struggles not able to overcome, regarding the former organization, like that is exactly what they talked about. I've talked to most of the former board members and have their support and push, and I have the minutes from all the former meetings, talked for hours with some of those board members, and got some neat insight. It's an exciting organization, and they have a long legacy, and just want to continue that. And regarding the comment about the salary of myself, that's not anywhere near true.
Can we allow,
It's
like,
okay, Sarah.
well, it's not actually okay to have debate in the audience, so.
There are plenty of discussions and things that need to be figured out with the monetary structure of the organization. For a salary, that's not, nobody will have a salary. There will be like regular wages that may be earned as staffing the visitor center, just as Bill does. Nobody would be a salaried person. This is not going to be a money-making, generating operation. The point of the monetization would be to take it off the village's hands of having to pay someone to staff as you want, and to be able to generate enough revenue to pay the people who are going to operate the visitor center, and just kind of keep it, and any overage would go to do extra activities, go be donated to the Historical Society, which I volunteer for. I docent there twice a month, do the website, do the social media, and it's a lovely organization. And the reason why a nonprofit sometimes helps another nonprofit is because they don't have the manpower or the time or the ability to do an extra event. And when you partner with another organization, it's just a mutual benefit. And that is very simple and straightforward to me anyways. There's a lot of neat things to discuss. I'm very upset at some of the comments especially the failure within 8 to 12 months. Phil was one of the first people I called. I sell his books at the Historical Society every other Sunday and talk so highly of him, and I'm just really hurt by that. I would love nothing more for Bill and Phil and Dolores's and everybody in the community's support, because it's for our community. And the other primary thing is, the last thing, this is not me, this is not the Herricks. This is going to be an organization that we help get off the ground with a board of other community members. This is not a fiefdom, this is not the Herrick show. It would be us putting in the legwork to establish the community, and that establish the organization, and that will take the community's help. And we already have a list of names of people who are interested in serving on the board or volunteering, and so on. And that includes a couple of former board members. So I hope that clarifies, and happy to continue discussions, and we're here for the community. We love it here. It's about to mark our 2-year anniversary, and I can't believe it's gone by so fast.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, for my part, I don't think anybody can doubt your enthusiasm. I've read through the proposals, and frankly, I don't see a lot of difference between what is being proposed and what we already have. I don't understand the argument with regard to liability that's facing the village, because we're subcontracting this out. It happens to be to Bill Zelsdorf and his crew right now. The village doesn't face any liability other than the building itself, which would continue regardless of who was inside the building operating it. As I read through, like I say, the proposal, the similarities of what's being proposed and what's already being offered are a mirror image. And so I really don't know that we'd get a whole lot out of it transferring it over. What I would caution the board on, and I would want council to take particular note, would be with regard to any board of directors that's created, any 501c3s or anything like that that would further complicate the village's control of that property. That's a village asset, and I have a strong concern about transferring over control of it to anybody. The village has to maintain and retain control and the say over it. So if what is being done right now is adequate, then the only thing I see that this proposal has allowed is new ideas with regard to activities, new ideas with regard to events. That's all well and good. We have a special events coordinator on staff full-time that can work with the village and the people in it to expand what's being offered there. And so I really don't see any benefit of transferring control of this facility to anybody. We're subcontracting this out, and I believe it would be in our best interest as a village to maintain what we have.
Did you have an issue with the previous 501(c)(3) that ran it?
No, but I understand that when it was first put together, and I think it was back in 1987, in order to be able to acquire and put this kind of thing together, because prior to it being there, it was an empty space. It was a 501c3 operation that was put together in order to raise the funds necessary to bring it about.
But it changed.
Well, over time it will, and over time this probably will as well,
Right.
and that's fine. I mean, things do change. But what I'm concerned about is that we're trying to fix something that isn't broken.
Well, it's sort of broken because
Well,
it broke in
no,
March.
It isn't, actually.
Like
because
it's
no, it isn't broken.
It's broken.
Because
It's gone.
What
What has happened
and has
before
always
is
meant to
gone.
provide was a visitor center,
Mm-hmm.
and the services that are provided within it are being maintained and they're being offered, and everything is running as it always should. Even in both proposals, that type of operation has been offered. Well, it's already there. So we, in a very real sense, are trying to fix what isn't broken. And so, you know, if the board chooses to want to change the complexion of the operation and the control of it, you know, you have the power to do it. I would caution you to make sure that whatever is put together, like I say, with regard to council, that East Dundee is protected and that under no circumstances are we going to lose control of that asset to any legalities that we didn't
I think
make
that-
sure we were clear on.
I mean, that's-
upfront.
I think that's listed in these points to consider and to include in
And that's
any
fine.
kind of
That's
agreement.
great. That doesn't mean that everybody knows it, Kevin, and this is why I'm saying it. So
I think, Franco, there's these questions or these discussion points.
Yeah.
And what I want to know, I guess, is when it says like, consider a 24-month lease with the option of extension at the board's discretion. I don't have a problem with that, but what are we saying by a lease? Or I see later it says flat rent. What was the previous tenant paying for rent?
$1 a year.
$1 a year. Okay, so why would we all of a sudden charge more to this group?
why would there be any lease? And there
I'm
shouldn't
not
be.
trying to question you,
Sure.
I'm just asking the question out loud, you know, why?
This
are
would
we-
probably go in our lease agreement, where the terms would have to be outlined, and you guys
Yeah.
could put a 24.
But I guess my point is, I'd like to know, for all these bullet points, what was the previous arrangement?
Yeah.
And then we could say, well, that was working well, or that wasn't working well, so we should revise that, I guess is my point.
Yeah. Well, the previous arrangement was a verbal arrangement
Yeah.
on the lease,
Well,
which this administration has really tried to tighten up all those verbal agreements
Right.
from the past because they get us into trouble,
sure.
That's my point. That's
which
my
is
point.
the way it was.
Yes.
Well, and I want to make sure that we don't repeat history
Right,
here.
yeah.
because
Okay,
we
so
have-
let's,
what we all
so
want.
let's look
So
at
we
these
agree.
points and try not to repeat history, right?
Yes.
And, you know, I guess we have to get some clarification on Catherine's office, or is it a second office?
There's a
or-
back room where a lot of the special event inventory
Yeah.
and the bands
So-
use.
I mean, it would be nice to get a detailed account of what actually is available to, you know, give to the new group to use, or,
So it sounds like you want staff to kind of talk something over with the applicant and kind of go over these bullet points and draft something up for the board to consider.
yes, but I also want to know what we used to do as well. I want to
Yeah.
compare it to what we have been doing, essentially.
Used to, currently, going forward.
Right.
As well as if we could get the legal advantage for the village if we were to have a nonprofit do this versus continuing what we were, where we are liable to hire and do all the insurance liability.
Well, we're just subbing it out. We have a subcontract arrangement with Bill Zelsdorf to operate it for the hours that we want it to be open. And
Right,
that's-
so
that's
the
their-
current-
Therein
So
lies
the current issue, Jeff, is we might have that agreement with him, but if he then also subcontracts, that is the legal liability for the village. That's the
Yes.
problem.
Well, we can iron that out. I mean,
We've
if
already-
that-
we
if that's a-
tried.
Well, he, I understand, has a number of individuals who back up if there's an inability for him to man the facility during the time, you know, he's meant to be there. If he needs somebody to fill in, he has that. That's the extent of
But the problem
subcontracting
is,
out.
the village is responsible for the staffing. If the village runs the depot, the village would have to be responsible
That's just
for
the point.
every
We're not-
single person
the
who
village
would be in
doesn't have
there.
the right, Sarah. We can continue the operation the way we always have. We're subcontracting out the operation to allow the facility to remain open under the hours that we want it to be.
Does Bill have any liability insurance for the people that he's working with?
If that's something
Yeah,
that
he
we want
does.
to.
Okay.
The village paid for it.
The village
village
pays
pays
for it.
Okay, so if the village, you know, wants to, you
And the
know,
vi-
require that, we can.
And the
Well, we
village pays
do.
hourly as well, and if we want events and different things to grow, then we're gonna have more staffing, and then that's gonna be more money from the village. And
Yeah.
so I think that we have to look at mitigating the village expenses there too, especially if a nonprofit wants to come in and take over those expenses. I think there's multiple layers.
And I do think, I do sincerely doubt that our attorneys would allow us to get into a position where we'd have massive liability and absolutely no protection from it. I would hope.
That's
I'll say I would hope.
That's a honorable testimonial to our current council. However, in my experience in the past, that hasn't always been the case with the village attorneys that we've had. We've been given some bad direction in the past. Which is why I mentioned it to begin with.
We would certainly, whatever route the village wants to do, whether it's to lease the property to another organization, if it's to staff it themselves through some sort of professional services agreement, we take great care in making sure that the village is covered. If it's a lease arrangement, we would make sure, any change in corporate structure is accounted for in the provisions, and, they have to transfer documents or things, or if it's run by a contractor of the village, we always make sure that there's provisions in there that any subcontractors are covered under those agreements as well.
One other thing I think is worth note, that we, I view this whole thing really as a make-work situation. I mean, we have this facility. We got to figure out how to run it. That's all well and good. As I mentioned, we're trying to fix something that isn't broke, but I also think that we have an opportunity for that facility to be housed by current employees down here at the village hall, if you will, that would be able to man that. So really, when we look at it from that perspective, the whole notion of the RFP in general was probably a wasted one. I mean, it wasn't, or not wholly necessary. Because if we wanted to utilize that space at the depot,
that's fine that you have that opinion.
With employees that are there, they would, in a sense, be able to man the facility just by their presence.
I think we need to consider, where is the village's money best invested by our current employees? Is it, and our current administrative staff, whatever that you are suggesting should consider doing that? Because it seems to me that we have much greater needs for, and our staff has been hired for their skill sets in running the village and running the business of the village, not in being, welcome staff to the village necessarily.
And I would
think
also
there's
say,
a lot of volunteers and
duty
residents that can be organized, trained, in addition to Bill and his volunteers, that we can expand the hours of the opening of the depot. We can expand and look forward and bring in these new ideas that, frankly, Bill has told me multiple times, I'm a follower, I'm not a leader. And so what we are looking at here is somebody that is looking to be a leader with new, fresh ideas, new energy.
And I salute that. I just don't think that it has to include giving over control of the facility to get that. If somebody wants to take part in the community events and come out with fresh ideas and add to what we already have, man, my hat's off to you. But it doesn't necessarily mean that I have to give you this building in order to come up with your ideas, and I'm concerned about
Would we be
I'm also
giving it
concerned
away?
about
No, we
the
wouldn't.
We're not
difficulty
giving the building
that
away.
we may find ourselves down the road.
I will
in trying to
also
retract
say
some
that
of
as far as staff helping run this thing, we have a shoestring staff. As it is, all of them are wearing more than one hat already. So I don't
And
think
in
we need to put
addition
more
to-
work on them.
In addition to special events, Catherine is our village clerk. So which is a full-time job.
Right.
So putting even more on her as far as staffing, it's something like this that can be farmed out and organized in a different manner than it currently is, which is a Band-Aid situation, which we voted on reluctantly for 3 times, I believe, in extending the contract to keep things open, to keep things running, I personally couldn't be happier with the energy and the vision and the research that this applicant, Rachel, put in to
And quite
into
frankly, the
this
respect
proposal.
for what has already been there. Really, it's troubling to hear some of the comments that were made today.
Phil,
I got a question.
quickly.
First of all, I want to explain something. I am not against Rachel.
If you don't mind speaking at the podium.
We need to,
The microphone.
Rachel did call me, we talked a number of times, for a pretty lengthy time for that matter too. So I have nothing, and I'm sorry that it hurt you. I'm not here to hurt anyone. I love people, I love you, I love people. And for me to even do this, it was hard for me to come here and say these things, but I'm gonna tell you why I did that, and if I'm wrong, I'm glad I'm wrong, okay? But I remember, Rachel, I thought you told me very clearly that you were gonna have make this an income for yourself. You told me that on the phone, didn't you? I would never have forgotten that.
First weekend that we were just early talking about it, I never said salary, just I'd be able to make a wage for myself if I'm the one staffing the business.
Make a wage?
Sure.
Okay.
With
May-
the hired staff, like, you know.
Okay.
Which is not.
So maybe I took it further than it was, but this is the point I'm thinking. This is why I made the statement of 8 to 12 months too. The reason why I made that, because in my mind, this is what scared me. That Rachel's gonna come in here, and she's gonna, and if I'm wrong, thank you. But that she's gonna get X amount of dollars, expect X amount of dollars, but she's not gonna work for the peanuts you give Bill per hour. That's peanuts. It's below minimum wage. She's not going to work for that. Let's be honest about it, okay? So the bottom line is she's going to be making an income, and the key is, I was thinking, this place was struggling for all these years. You know that yourself. You said they couldn't give the money to the grant for the child in college because it wasn't there. So I'm thinking in my brain that this is going to fail because of the fact of the expense it's going to be for her to even make enough money to cover herself, much as anybody else, and that's what I was thinking. And so my concern is that she will become frustrated, and then what's going to happen is that although she has great intention, God bless her, I know she's a docent at the Historical Society, I know she is. She's involved in a lot of things, and that she has a great heart and a great drive. I know, I agree with that. But I saw the fact that what's going to happen in my mind is she's going to go into this here, and it's going to fail, and that's why I made the statement that it might close down in 8 to 12 months because of that fact. And then where are we going to be at?
well, we'll be right back where we are right now.
Right.
We're-
We would not have lost
But
any-
Bill will be, but your person you have working for less than minimum wage won't be available possibly.
He is making minimum wage now, by the way.
We-
Yeah?
Yeah.
You're making $15 an hour?
We
Again,
made
that's
sure of that. Yeah, I want to make sure all the
Uh.
facts are straight. We definitely made sure it was minimum wage.
Okay, good. Okay, no, it wasn't up until then recently. Okay, so thank you. I'm glad for his sake that you've done that. Good. So anyway, but believe me, I'm not here to cause rifts.
You're right.
I am not. That's the last thing that I want to do,
Okay.
because you know it's very important that we all work together.
Well,
Is that clear?
Yeah.
I would just say for anybody that has concerns about the future of this, get involved. I mean,
Yeah.
help them. I mean, that's.
Yeah.
that's
I
what
am
we can
involved
Yeah.
already. So many, that's what I do. I'm here almost every day.
do. Right. That's all I'm saying.
mean,
is maintain that. Don't get upset and then just.
Oh no,
Yeah.
I'm not upset. Believe me, I have a strong voice, and I emphasize certain words when I'm giving a talk. Okay.
And you're very loyal to Bill.
But it's not about Bill.
And
not-
and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
That's a nice thing.
Yeah, but it's just about the future of the visitor center. I don't want to lose it.
Yeah.
And if we can maintain it, I'm happy. I want that, you know. But I just see.
I think that's what we all want.
That's what we're trying to do.
Okay. So I just want to make sure, Claire.
Thank you.
I just want to personally just again apologize to Rachel if I hurt you. That's not my objective.
All right, you have enough direction,
Okay,
Franco?
yeah,
You
so
know,
I'm,
Franco?
staff will meet with, sorry, go ahead.
Dolores, would you like to readdress?
Well, I'd just like to say, we could harness Rachel's enthusiasm and her outgoingness to a community that would be wonderful, and we accept your all things. I talked to you before about square dances and all of these things, but our biggest boom here in East Dundee was when Karen Blair was here. She started all these things.
Yeah, she did.
And it's up to us to continue them. And I'm afraid we're letting us down, because I would like to know why East Dundee could not accept the finances that were left over from the nonprofit organization from the depot.
Yeah, that's a complicated issue. I don't, actually, it's
You
not
don't-
complicated, it's just fuzzy.
It
But
just-
we ended up, donating all
Because
that money to the
I know
Historical
Bill made
Society.
the offer here, and he also made the offer to, whatever, over the expenses of the Saturdays would go back. This could be done without anybody interfering
Right.
and getting around. You know, East Ending tried to take the depot market once before, and it failed. So we don't want to do it again.
Well, that's our concern.
That's our concern. We don't
We-
want to. We
Huh?
don't want to take that on. as a
No,
village.
but
We
you
want
did,
some-
and you were promising somebody else to do it. I mean, it's just like that.
We didn't.
I want East Dundee to keep the depot as their own, not bring in other people.
And I think
But
what
that's my,
she's also considering that
Thanks, Dolores.
it's
Thank you.
important that it
Thank
become
you.
a self-sustaining operation as well. So if not, it's likely to be subsidized by village funds, which we never have done in the past.
We're
We
doing
have
it
done
right
for the
now.
last 2.5
We're
years.
keeping that open for purposes of maintaining the operation of the facility, that's all. So,
That's what the proposal
Franco, do you
is.
have the direction of the board?
okay, do you have what you need?
Thank
Okay,
you.
Move on?
let's move on. Item C, please. Motion.
Franco, this is to be tabled, is that correct?
Correct.
It's
The
just a
applicant-
discussion item anyway.
No, item C is actually a motion, and I'm going to move to table that to the August 21st meeting.
Second.
Yes. Can I ask why?
It was a request of the applicant.
Okay. Do you need a vote on that?
Yes.
Trustee Mahoney,
Yes.
Coonsey,
Yes.
Britton,
Yes.
Saviano,
Yes.
and Sauter.
Yes.
Okay, that'll take us to item D, if we could have a motion.
I will make a motion to approve a resolution waiving bidding and approving the purchase of a 2022 Ford F-350 4x4 pickup utility box truck in the amount of $72,890.26 from Gulf Mill Ford.
Second.
Okay, Phil, I'm not gonna beat you up here, but I'm gonna beat you up here. Got a couple questions. One is, why are we waiving the bid process? Second is, why do we need another truck? I mean, we've got 8 guys on Public Works crew, and we've got 9 trucks. I'm struggling here. Not to mention, we just bought an $81,000 boom and a $67,000 skid steer. You're driving us into bankruptcy.
that
Actually,
let's-
it's in the budget.
It's in the budget.
Yeah, it's in the budget.
It's in the budget, doesn't mean we have to spend it. I'm just asking.
Phil, if you want, and please take what you want, but if you need me to explain the waiving, the bidding, I'm happy to take whatever portion.
No, I can answer.
Okay.
Try both. And
Perfect.
Just
far
because
as-
we generally don't, so I'm
Yes.
just wondering why we are here.
we are, in this particular instance, we looked at purchasing the Northwest Municipal Conference's purchasing cooperative. Because of our short time frame here, we could not purchase a vehicle and get it in this current fiscal year. So we wanted to take advantage of the funds that are allocated or appropriated in the current fiscal year budget in order to do that. Competitive bidding right now, some of the truck manufacturers are now opening up, ordering programs and systems, but delivery of these vehicles wouldn't occur until well into 2024. So purchasing this through a competitive bid process just wasn't in the cards for the timing of our stub year budget and so on and so forth. We can do that, but we wouldn't be able to purchase anything until well into 2024. To answer your second question, this will replace a vehicle that we currently have in our fleet that is, as my memo indicates, is 180-some thousand miles on the vehicle that was given to the village back in 2013, 14-ish, and used as a utility vehicle. So we transport, it has a lift gate on it, so we use it to transport various pieces of equipment and tools. So that truck will be sold. In fact, in 2 weeks, I'll come present to you a disposal of surplus ordinance that'll include that vehicle, the lift that we recently just purchased or replaced, and some other equipment in our fleet. So when I came to East Dundee, I think we've sold 8 or 9 vehicles already, and I think we've only replaced them with 2 or 3 vehicles. I think 3 or 4 vehicles actually. So we've got overall a net loss of vehicles, probably 5-ish
maybe 6. So we're trying to operate with a newer fleet and a more efficient fleet overall. So this vehicle will replace, there is a need to have this vehicle to transport to tow some of our trailers, so our lift, our skid steer loader, our landscape trailer, and some other equipment. It'll it'll have the lift gates, so we can transport our generator and some other heavier equipment that just isn't feasible for even 2 of our public works employees to lift onto the truck.
We're not able to acquire this vehicle through the enterprise lease program?
The enterprise lease program looked into it, of course. Our public works needs are very unique, truck to truck. And I'll offer, I spoke at length with the enterprise folks, it might have been earlier this year or late last year. And if it doesn't, in my opinion, it doesn't necessarily apply across the board for all of our vehicles, just because each vehicle has a kind of somewhat of a unique, there's a varied use to all of our vehicles. Unlike the police department, where they have their squads are more of a consistent use, whereas we have some of our dump trucks, it's more of an intermittent use. So the use over time varies. And for example, this utility box truck, we're only going to have one of these in our fleet. We're actually, when I came here, we had 4 dump trucks. We're now downsizing to 2 dump trucks. And I'll present that kind of in discussion in more detail in 2 weeks, as we're looking to actually dispose of one of our large dumps in 2 weeks.
Is this going to be replacing the flatbed, the bigger? It's a red flatbed?
No. Well, that will go eventually here in the near future, but this will replace the white pickup that you probably see driving around town. It's got a lift. It's very old. In fact, we had to replace, I think, one of the doors on it a year or 2 back.
I mean, according to the memo in the packet, it is a 2009 Chevy Silverado that has over 185,000 miles on it and was donated to the village in 2013 used. So it probably could use a little replacement.
It's well beyond its useful life, yes. Which is the reason why we requested to incorporate that into our current fiscal year budget.
And the maintenance is costing the village more,
Yes,
and it's
yes.
also down while it's being repaired.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
It's currently functioning at the moment, but it's
For now.
been in for service. So we're trying to turn over our fleet and operate a fleet that's reliable. And we've emphasized caring for our vehicles and routine maintenance and service. This is kind of part of getting rid of some of the vehicles that we just are not serving as well.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a 2022. Are there miles on this?
160 miles.
Oh, okay. So it's new.
It's the reason being that it's 2022, and that's a good question. So Ford took this cab chassis and gave it to Monroe Truck Equipment, which is a separate company altogether, to outfit the utility box and the service body on it. And that took 3 or 4 months. So to reproduce, to competitively bid this vehicle, for example, starting now, it would take time for Ford to manufacture the cabin chassis, and then a period of time to produce the service body and the utility boxes. So that could be a year-ish process between cabin chassis manufacturer and utility service body manufacturer, and then to us for actual use. So we likely wouldn't see that vehicle until sometime into spring, summer next year, potentially.
Any other questions? No? Thank you, Phil.
So thank you for your questions.
Thank you.
Trustee Mahoney?
Yes.
Kunze?
Yes.
Britton?
Yes.
Saviano?
Yes.
And Sauter?
Yes.
Okay, that'll take us to item E if we could have a motion.
I'm having a hard time making that motion.
I'm not going to make a motion.
We're not going to have a motion?
I mean, I'm against it or would vote no, so
I'm against it too.
Okay, then it dies on the vine. Explain that to your neighbors. We'll go to
They will be
item
happy.
F.
Yeah.
Direction, I'll move for
Yes.
direction and response. Do I need to?
Yes,
It's
just direction in response to a proposal to partner with West Dundee to provide code enforcement services. We spoke with Joe Cavallero, who had a full-time headcount and has recently got a second. Only there's idle capacity with that second individual. And we are going to partner with them to take on one of the days of the 5 that they'll be there. I added this one up at $50 an hour. We're talking, that's $100,000 a year. I don't know if that's a salary commensurate with that particular position. It's more than I've seen in other communities, so I'm not really sure what to make of that since this is not a voting item. We can, I can ask staff, I can run by Erica to check that. I know that B&F Tech charges far more, but that's B&F Tech. Again, I was working with the mayor of Algonquin for the same sort of service. However, that one fell through, and when West Dundee opened up, this came about. I have since been approached by an individual who is retired but still got a fair amount of gas in the tank who could do this particular job on a part-time basis. So I want to explore that as well to find out what sort of costs would be involved in bringing that person on. So before we make any commitments with West Dundee, I'd like to explore that. So that'll be another item that I need to discuss with
My
her.
question is, what do we hope to gain with this?
Well, there's a lot of, Chris, you could speak to this. I mean, code enforcement is really an offshoot of the building department, and with a one-man shop that we have right now, not,
Yeah, so the
Point,
primary code enforcement that we do here is complaint driven. Neighbors complain or businesses complain about an issue that exists, and then we get it addressed and get it corrected. Depending on how, there's other things like you want to go after other type of property maintenance, like on residential, like a driveway that needs to be replaced, or a house that needs to be painted, or a roof that has to be replaced, that people aren't maintaining it. That would be something where you would, aggressively address these things without complaints and just go around and cite people.
And if we didn't want to do that, because that seems like
Well,
not our
I think
community
if-
style.
I think there used to be a residential facade program.
Right.
Similar to the commercial.
Right.
And we don't have that anymore.
No,
But
I
if-
think we mentioned trying to
Right,
regroup that for the next
if we could possibly
budget.
do something like that, or if there's projects, like if you're looking to get driveways addressed, or maybe have some sort of program where the village could help finance those, and then they could pay back over time, like on their utility bills, in addition to what they're paying. So there's programs that maybe we could get, help people get the funding to
Right.
get these projects done.
So I guess my question with this and my concern here, I do not want someone driving around this town telling people that their grass is too long, or that their house needs to be painted, or things like.
Well,
I have no appetite for that. But just one second,
Okay.
because there is a but to that. But if it was a public safety issue, if it's a landlord situation, things like that, I could see needing inspections done regularly for the apartment buildings or things like that. Like, that's what I see, where people don't really have the ability to take care of their own home, right? Their home is owned by somebody else, so if something's broken, they can't fix it. Right, things like, or in between, that's a great case, in between owners on property. I just don't want someone driving around this town telling people what their house is supposed to look like. So, where are we with this versus my concern? Like I said, my concern, I don't want that. So,
Do you, as a board, personally see a lot of violations that you would like addressed?
no.
yes. I've received a number of
Yeah,
calls.
right,
You
and
have
when
too.
when I get those
know that.
complaints, I do follow up on those
Right.
and get those
Right.
things addressed. I mean,
Been a number.
in the spring, sometimes people don't get around to cutting their grass, and
Right.
neighbors complain, and they get a notice, and and they get the grass cut.
But in your opinion, is that system working, or do we need someone one day a week to take that off of your plate because you have too much happening?
The complaint-based system.
Pardon me?
Right, is the
I mean,
complaint-based system
complaint-
working?
What's the
yeah,
volume?
complaint-driven format is working. Now, there are issues where I see properties that nobody's complained about that are a disaster, that I do address those, because it's obvious. There's, 12 cars or 12 trucks parked on a property that, and eventually, I mean, we have taken people through adjudication to help them, motivate them to get through that process. So that's a rare cases where we have 3 or 4 of those a year where we have to go through adjudication to get that done. Most times people do comply within the time frame or within a reasonable time frame to get those corrected.
I think the main use-
If you wanted to do something instead of getting a contract with somebody or hiring somebody part-time, if you want to do something with B&F code services, even though they're a little more an hour, you could limit the number of hours per month or per quarter where they would actually go out there and just cite people on that.
I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but my preference would be something like that where we say a couple days a month we need to inspect all of the rental properties in town and make sure that those buildings are up to code because the tenants don't have the ability to make those fixes, things like that. Like, let's take care of public safety issues.
There's a landlord-tenant conflict.
Right, something
Yeah.
like that, as opposed to drive around town and see what
We've
you
got
can
a
do.
situation where, or a code that, I think, Sarah, your points are well taken. Only what we're talking about doing is enforcing the codes that are already on the books. The complaint-driven system is fine, and yeah, it gets addressed. The problem with the complaint-driven system, as I see it, is one of timing. So I can go ahead and issue a complaint to the village that my neighbor's grass is too long, and they'll get to it, and they will. But will they get to it when it's 6 inches high or 12? In that time, eventually, the village will get to it. That's not an issue. It's just when. A code enforcement officer could expedite that whole process.
Well, my thing is...
Also, with the idea that you have inspections being done on rental properties, that's a whole separate issue because we already have we actually have a
licensing
program that requires them to pay $100 a year for that inspection, the inspections for which we never conduct. And there I have an issue, and that's a separate
well, it's not
offline
specifically for the
conversation.
inspection. It's a license to rent your property.
It is,
Now,
but it's being sold as an inspection, and that's
it doesn't
problem.
specifically state it gets inspected every year. But it
Well,
is. Well,
it was originally put together because I was on the board when it was, that it was going to be an inspection service that was going to be required of all rental properties. We never do it. I can't tell you how many people who have rental properties in this town who called me moaning and groaning about that. And they'd say, hey, you know what, I'd rather have you call it a tax because that's essentially what it is.
Does somebody else have an opinion on what is different?
Yeah, so anyway.
Andy?
Could you give us a sense of how many complaints you get per month on average?
I think on an annual year, it's probably around 40 on an annual.
40 per year
Per
or
year,
per month?
for 12 months.
Okay. Yeah, I'm.
Have you been okay handling that huge load?
Yeah, I mean, most, yes, handling that load, yes. But if, like I say, if you want to go out, and aggressively pursue these things, then it's going to take more time.
And I have no intention of aggressively pursuing that. That'll, for our residents.
Yeah, I think since the code, there are a lot of things that need to be reviewed, and we don't want to incentivize someone to find every loophole to start violating or writing violations. I do see the value in what Jeff's talking about of a yearly lease inspection and what both of you guys were saying of protecting those people who are renting and actually having somebody inspect those and make sure that those are not safety issues.
But this one isn't going to be, a code enforcement officer is not going to be making the inspections. That would be Chris's duty. This would be just someone who would be taking, as you say, the complaint arm of the department off your neck. And 1 day a week is what's being proposed. So again, this is discussion. If we have in the direction I'd like, as I say, I have a couple different aspects that we can address this particular need for beyond what's being proposed here on the agenda tonight, so I'd like to
So
We'll
touch base
continue
with
the
Eric.
conversation.
So staff,
Exactly.
so
We can continue.
Franco, Chris, do you
We'll
have enough from this conversation, or do you need more?
So what are we exploring more of to come back
So
with?
I do not think we want to engage any close to full-time. I would say 1 day a week or less,
Yeah.
or 1 day a week or maybe twice a month. And we don't want it to be someone driving around town looking for violations. It would be fairly limited to the complaint system to give Chris time to take a look at some of these properties that need to be inspected.
And from which proposal, the BNF or the village of West
Oh,
Dundee?
Not
shoot.
the West Dundee is
West
what's
Dundee.
being proposed here on the agenda, but as I say, I have another avenue I'd like to explore with Erica and I'll get with
So
her
I guess
to-
it would
to
require
discuss
further
that.
exploration on
This
all.
part.
On
Yeah.
I would like to know, like, or you would put together how many hours a week or a month you feel like you put towards the complaint, like
Okay.
dealing
Yeah,
with the complaint.
that'd be great.
And that would give us
That'd be
really good
really-
direction.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
All right.
And how many you think you would need to spend on doing the inspections for the
Rental
lease,
properties?
for rental properties?
Okay.
That would be really helpful
right.
information.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for
Thanks,
standing
Chris.
under the line of fire.
That'll take us to item G, if we could have a motion.
I will move to approve an ordinance amending Village Code Section 93.11, noise, to prohibit the emission of sound within village after 11 p.m. or midnight on Fridays and Saturdays.
Second.
Franco, you want to give us
Questions?
background on
Well, so this is a question, is it 11 or is it midnight? Is that what we're
No,
trying?
it's Monday through Friday, or Monday through Thursday, 11, and it'll be midnight on Friday and Saturdays. It mirrors surrounding communities.
The way that it's worded is that we need to choose either 11 o'clock or midnight on Fridays and Saturdays, because I believe it is already earlier Monday through Thursday, or Sunday through Thursday.
Yeah, there's a little bit of inconsistency in the noise ordinance. At the last meeting, you guys discussed, you wanted to see what other towns were doing as far as the ending hours of the noise ordinance. And as you can see, the surrounding towns typically end at around 11. So we thought it would, or 10. So we thought it would be appropriate for East Dundee to propose an 11 p.m. end time, and that's Monday through Friday to keep it simple. And something you guys talked about a lot, the businesses and the bars in the downtown. Well, we want to remind you that they're going to go through a special use program, and the PZHC is also going to discuss a blanket language for those specific bans, hours of operations. And this wouldn't start until January 1st of 2024, so whatever the businesses have in place, they could continue to do so by the existing noise ordinance.
Okay.
So
Okay,
if a
and-
band, let's say, or a bar wants to have a band on every Saturday, and they do, they put in the application for the special use permit, they can do it till midnight if they ask for it and it's approved?
That's the board's prerogative, but it would be nice to have kind of a consistency so the police department understands those 8 or 9 businesses have that special use condition.
Right. My biggest concern is, I mean, this is specifically about amplified noise outside of a specific barrier, right? So you can have a band inside your building and not have me able to hear it 75 feet away after like a certain period of time. That's what I don't care if you have a band that goes until 1 o'clock in the morning, as long as I can't hear it and doesn't wake the kids up, right? Like that's the worry here. So-
Village-wide, and it's not just
Right.
music, it could be chainsaws, it could be any construction.
Nobody can mow
type
their
stuff like
yard
that,
too early or
exactly.
too late.
But that's a construction section on this, so that's already in there.
Okay.
But we, as you notice, we're also proposing to repeal the decibel section, which is at the end of the noise ordinance,
Okay.
to make it more cohesive and in tune with what the other surrounding towns are doing.
Okay, so
Chief, this
it's
falls
plainly
under your
audible, plainly
purview.
audible within 50 feet.
Do you have any comments on this?
The only thing I would say is that we are trying to get it more consistent, so it's easier to enforce, and we're just not talking about the specific business area, but certainly as Trustee Britton said, or I forget which, as far as what time they stop, entertaining is not the issue. It's when they're just starting to disturb the neighbors. I can tell you that just over this weekend, we did have the neighborhood establishment on water get called on again by the West Dundee police, who then asked us to go talk to our business owner, and they shut it down.
And what
because
time
it was
was
carrying over. You know what? That's a great question. That I'll have to double
Because
check.
honestly, if it's at 10 o'clock at night or 9 o'clock at night, that's sort of like noise travels down the river. I mean, I can hear noise from Carpenter Park at my house, and I can't really, like at 2 o'clock on a Saturday, I can't do anything about it. But if it's at midnight, yes.
Yeah, and then as Frank had mentioned, and we talked about at the last meeting, is that we're also talking about the house party next door too.
Right.
So that's why we have to have some consistency.
Yeah. I mean, I'd say 11 just because,
And that's Friday and Saturday, whereas the Sunday through Thursday remains at 10:30.
right.
Okay.
I mean, again, you can still have bands inside your bar, It's just what's outside and what your neighbors can hear and what time you want your neighbors to be able to hear the music.
I think it was consistent with other towns
Mhm.
getting it at 11. Our current contracts that bars have with current musicians can stand because this doesn't start till next year. I don't want to upset their contracts.
Right,
in
that's
place.
key.
And then if they do have some sort of special event and have the opportunity to ask for some sort
Yes.
of variance, I still like having that option. So then
Absolutely.
I'd be okay with 11.
Absolutely.
Anything else? 11?
Okay, so it's written in the ordinance as 11 right now, so we would just be voting on
You would
as
be,
it's written here.
yeah, you would be the motion, what the title is, the one with the
Option
11 p.m. and repeal option.
So should we rephrase the motion to strike or midnight?
Yes, yeah, because there were two ordinances prepared and drafted, so that
Okay.
either one could have been adopted.
Well, then I will
and-
repeal my motion.
Second.
Okay. Franco?
Do we need to vote on the repeal?
Wouldn't you need to vote then on that? new
Yeah,
one?
oh, yes.
Or do we just
And
make
then
one?
make a new
Motion.
And then we'll make a new motion and then I'll.
So have the motion on the 11 p.m. one, please.
He just repealed, so do we need to vote on his repeal? Sorry, I'm poking.
A show of voices?
Show of voice. Yes.
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 Aye.
So now.
Now we need a motion for the
11
11 p.m.
Okay. I will move to approve an ordinance amending Village Code, Section 93.11, noise, to prohibit the emission of sound within the village after 11 p.m. on Fridays and Saturdays.
Second.
Franco. Trustee Mahoney.
Yes.
Kunze.
Yes.
Britton.
Yes.
Saviano.
Yes.
And Sauter.
Yes.
Okay, that'll take us to reports. Andy, you want to start us off?
Uh-oh.
Oh, Chief, I'm sorry.
10:56 p.m. it was called.
So
Oh my gosh.
wait, 4 more minutes.
No report tonight.
Trish?
No report.
Scott?
No report.
Kathleen?
Number one, Chief, you had mentioned in, I think, one of the weekly reports that there were potential changes in process and procedure based on the Cash Bail Trial Fairness Act. How's that going?
Just spectacular. So actually, right now, all the police departments in Illinois are going through retraining because we were all set and ready to go January 1st.
Right.
And then it got put on hold, so now after 8 months, we pretty much forgot everything. But honestly, truthfully, the state's attorney and the sheriff's office are getting ready to gear up along with the chief judge. It's going to create some issues for us, not just because there will be a whole group of criminal charges where people will get released right away and then asked to please promise and come to court, please. The other will be is that there will be a group of violations that will allow us to hold the individual. They'll go to court in the morning. There will be a probable cause hearing, and then we may have to go back in the afternoon again to St. Charles for a detention hearing, depending on the type of charge it is, on whether or not they're a danger to the community, so forth, and all those other parameters. So there's going to be a significant amount of more work on the jail, on the courts, and on the police departments, including, I think, what will turn out to be a staffing challenge for all of us. So there's a lot of work in progress yet, but there's going to be a lot to consider.
Okay, thank you. Also, I was at Woodstock Farmers Market and wanted to know, Phil, where are the long games that were put out for some of the Wind Down Wednesdays and that kind of stuff? Is that in the depot? Is that at the...
I think they're in the special events garage, I believe.
They're in the special events garage?
No, Bill says they are in the depot.
They are in the depot?
They're in the depot.
Okay. Because I would really like to see that as a practice when you're opening up during the week, Bill, to put out some of those long games so that we're creating a more welcoming, family-friendly area, and then take them in at night. Also, they had a really awesome bubble machine, which kids absolutely adore and love, that at some point in time, like to see that happening in lieu of not having a water park or a water play park, play pad, that kind of thing. Again, just trying to amenitize and bring some new ideas to what's going on daily at the depot. And then also, there are no truck signs at the most western end of Bonnie Dundee Road, but there are none at the eastern end of Bonnie Dundee Road. And there used to be one there, and it's missing now. So I'm wondering if we can get one. I guess that's a...
We'll stop staring at you.
Instead of you, Chief. If we can get that replaced. It was at the corner of Council Hill and Bonnie Dundee. Just so we're consistent for people traveling both east and west. That's all I had.
Wednesday is Wind Down? Where were you on that? You're usually that person.
I gave it to you.
Thanks. And beyond that, no report.
Caitlin, do you have anything?
No report. Peace. Oh.
Joe?
No report.
Chris?
No report.
Chief? Brandis? I haven't heard from you today. You're taking over for Erica, who's absent today. So appreciate
I
that.
just wanted to report that our auditors will be on site in the next couple of weeks. So we will be busy with that process pretty soon. And I also wanted to turn it over to Franco to introduce our intern, Caleb.
Hi, Caleb. Hi, Caleb. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. So, Caleb's joining us. He's a graduate program student at DePaul, where he's studying his Master of Public Administration, and he'll be with us part-time until the end of 2024. He'll be interning in the village administrator's office, helping out with things and learning how to run a municipality.
Welcome.
Looking forward to working with you.
What's up?
Looking forward to working with you.
Likewise.
All right.
Phil?
No report.
No? Okay, I have no report tonight, so that concludes our, I don't believe we're going into an executive session, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Franco?
Voice vote?
Aye.
Thank you all for coming. Appreciate everyone's input.
Street contracts?
Yeah.
You are green. So